Now, let's get real about where counseling psychology came from. It didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It started because some folks saw a problem and decided to do something about it. Back in the early 1900s, people with mental health issues were often treated horribly. They were locked away and forgotten. A man named Clifford Beers went through that system himself. When he got out, he wrote a book that blew the lid off the whole thing. He started what was called the mental hygiene movement. The big idea was simple: treat people with dignity and focus on preventing mental illness, not just locking people up after the fact. It was a wake-up call, and it got people thinking differently. At the same time, the world was changing fast. The Industrial Revolution was in full swing, and people needed help finding their place in it. This is where a man named Frank Parsons comes into the picture. He's often called the father of vocational guidance. Parsons saw that young people were struggling to choose careers that fit them. He believed that if you understood yourself, your skills, your interests, your values, and you understood the world of work, you could make a smart choice. This wasn't just about getting a job, it was about finding a life path that made sense. He created a system to help people do just that, and it laid the groundwork for helping everyday people with everyday problems. These two big ideas, treating people humanely and helping them find their way in the world, are the foundation of counseling psychology. It wasn't about digging into deep, severe mental illness at first. It was about wellness, it was about growth, it was about helping regular people live better, more productive lives. This focus on strengths and prevention is what made it different from the get-go. It was a practical, common-sense approach to helping others navigate the challenges of life. The goal was to empower people, not just to fix what was broken. This philosophy is still at the heart of the profession today, and frankly, it's what makes it so powerful. So you see, counseling psychology was born out of a desire for social reform and practical guidance. It was a response to real-world needs. It championed the idea that everyone deserves a chance to be healthy and find meaningful work. This wasn't about some abstract theory cooked up in a lab. It was about rolling up your sleeves and helping people right where they were. From Clifford Beers demanding better care to Frank Parsons drawing a map for career choices, the mission was clear: focus on wellness, focus on strengths, and help people build a life that works. That's a foundation you can build a house on. After it got started, counseling psychology had to figure out what it wanted to be when it grew up. A major turning point came in 1949 with something called the Boulder Conference. Now, this was a big deal. The top minds in psychology got together and created the scientist-practitioner model, or the Boulder model. The idea was that psychologists should be both scientists and practitioners. They needed to do the research, understand the data, and be able to think critically like a scientist. But they also needed to be able to sit down with a real person and provide effective therapy. This dual focus on science and practice became the gold standard for training and gave the field some serious credibility. Then in the 1950s and 60s, a new way of thinking started to shake things up. It was called humanistic psychology, and people like Carl Rogers were leading the charge. This wasn't about diagnosing people or analyzing their past, it was about seeing the good in people. Rogers believed that everyone has a natural drive to grow and become their best self. He said the therapist's job was to provide a safe, accepting space for that to happen. He talked about empathy, genuineness, and unconditional positive regard. This approach put the client in the driver's seat and emphasized the power of the therapeutic relationship itself. It was a game changer, and it fit perfectly with counseling psychology's focus on wellness and personal growth. As society became more aware of its diversity, the field had to evolve again. It became painfully obvious that a one-size-fits-all approach to therapy just doesn't work. What works for one person might not work for someone from a different culture, race, or background. This led to the rise of multiculturalism in psychology. The new rule was simple: you have to understand a person's cultural context to help them effectively. This means being aware of your own biases, learning about different worldviews, and adapting your therapeutic style. It's about respect. It's about recognizing that our identities shape our experiences, and good therapy has to honor that. So you can see how the profession was built, layer by layer. It started with the solid foundation of the Boulder model, which demanded both smarts and skills. Then humanistic psychology came in and gave it a heart, reminding everyone that the relationship is what heals. Finally, the multicultural movement gave it a conscience, pushing practitioners to be more aware, more respectful, and more effective for everyone, not just one group of people. Each of these developments made counseling psychology stronger, more relevant, and better equipped to handle the real, complex lives of the people it serves. It's a journey of constant learning and improvement. All right, let's clear the air because a lot of people get confused about all the different helpers out there. You've got counseling psychologists, clinical psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers. What's the difference? Let's break it down. Counseling psychology, as we've talked about, typically focuses on wellness, personal growth, and helping people with life's challenges. Think relationship issues, career choices, or coping with stress. They work with people who are generally functional but need support to navigate specific problems. They are trained in therapy, assessment, and research, always looking at a person's strengths and their environment. Now, let's look at clinical psychology. There's a lot of overlap here. But the traditional focus of clinical psychology has been on more serious mental illness. Think schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or major depressive disorder. They often work in hospital settings and are heavily trained in diagnosis and the treatment of psychopathology. While both fields use therapy, you can think of it this way. A counseling psychologist might help you manage anxiety about a new job, while a clinical psychologist might treat a severe, debilitating anxiety disorder. The line is blurry, but the historical focus is different. It's about the severity of the issue, not the skill of the professional. Then you have psychiatrists. This is the one that's easiest to separate. Psychiatrists are medical doctors. They go to medical school and then they specialize in psychiatry. Because they are physicians, they are the only ones on this list who can prescribe medication. Their approach is often rooted in the biological and neurological causes of mental health disorders. They might provide therapy, but their primary tool is often medication management. So if you need medication to manage a condition, a psychiatrist is the person you need to see. They focus on the medical side of mental health. Finally, let's talk about social workers, professional counselors, and coaches. Social workers are amazing. They're trained to look at this whole system, the person, their family, their community, and the societal factors affecting them. They connect people to resources and are huge advocates for social justice. Professional counselors, often with a master's degree, provide excellent therapy for a wide range of issues similar to counseling psychologists. And life coaches, they are focused on the future. They help you set and achieve goals. But they aren't trained to treat mental health conditions. They are partners in your potential, not healers of your past pain. Each one of these professions is valuable, but they have different training, different tools, and different areas of focus. You better believe the world of counseling psychology isn't standing still. It's changing, and it's changing fast. One of the biggest shifts we're seeing is the move to digital. Telemental health is here to stay. People can now get therapy through video calls, text messages, and specialized apps. This makes getting help easier and more accessible, especially for people who live far from a therapist's office or have trouble leaving home. And with that comes artificial intelligence, or AI. AI can help with scheduling, provide resources, and even analyze therapy sessions to give therapists feedback. It's not about replacing the therapist, but about giving them better tools to do their job. Another huge trend is the push for culturally responsive practice. We've moved beyond just being aware of different cultures. Now the goal is to actively adapt therapy to fit a person's specific cultural background, values, and beliefs. This means using approaches that make sense within their worldview and honoring their unique experiences of the world. At the same time, there's a renewed focus on what's always been at the core of this field: prevention and building on strengths. Instead of waiting for a crisis, the idea is to give people the skills like resilience and emotional regulation to handle challenges before they become overwhelming. It's about building a strong foundation for mental wellness. Something else that's gaining traction is called eco-counseling or ecotherapy. This is a fascinating idea. It recognizes that our connection to the natural world is vital for our mental health. You might have a therapy session while walking in a park or use nature-based activities as part of the healing process. In a world where so many of us are stressed out and disconnected, this approach reminds us of the calming and grounding power of nature. It's about understanding that our well-being is tied to the well-being of the planet we live on. It's a holistic view that expands the definition of a healing environment. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with a profession that is dynamic, adaptive, and more relevant than ever. Counseling psychology started with a simple mission to help people live better lives, and that mission hasn't changed. But the tools, the approaches, and the understanding of what it means to be well are constantly evolving. From using cutting-edge technology to getting back to nature, the field is expanding to meet the real needs of people in the 21st century. It's a profession grounded in solid research, focused on practical help, and committed to a future where everyone has the support they need to thrive. And that's not just a good thing, it's essential.